Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be telling you all about how I managed to get 10 9s at GCSE. I'll be going through different resources you can use and revision methods that I personally used as well that can really help you revise quickly for your GCSEs. So stay tuned if you want to find out more. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to be talking about the different methods I use mainly for my GCSE revision. So the main method I used to revise was mostly past papers. So I ended up doing a lot of past paper questions, and I think that past papers are a really good way to revise because you're doing the questions that might come up in your exam and that have come up previously. So I'll just show you all the past papers I did. So this looks like, these are all the past papers I did, and like each of these is like a little booklet. So I like printed them off and just like did the questions and then marked it myself. I know this looks like it was a lot, but it was over like a few months, so it's not like crazy, but I think that this was the majority of my revision anyway. So if you think like doing revision notes, you probably have like a similar stack anyway, but instead of doing revision notes, I actually just chose to do past papers. And I think that doing past papers was probably the best way to revise, because I think by doing questions you really identify where your knowledge gaps are, and that means that when it comes to actually revising, you can do the questions that you struggle with most. When you're doing past papers, you don't have to necessarily print it off, you can just do it in like on paper. For my year, there was only like 3 years before us that had done it, so there weren't a lot of past papers, but hopefully by now there will be a few more years that you can do. And if you go on like your exam board website, you can find a list of the past papers that have happened, and then you can just do them in your own time. And you might even find it's useful to do your past papers more than once, especially if you're running out as well. I'd also say with past papers, it's really important, especially for like science and things like that, to mark it yourself, because I remember for biology, it had like a really specific mark scheme, and like if you didn't use like one specific word, you wouldn't get any of the marks, which was really annoying. But if you mark it yourself, you can literally see what the mark scheme says, and because you read the mark scheme, you can put that in your answer in the future. And also, they tend to ask a lot of the similar questions about topics. So if you've done all the past papers, you might find that in your actual exam, you get questions that you've already done before, which are really similar. So that's why I really recommend past papers. Another thing I found really useful for revising was mind maps. And I know a lot of people say mind maps, but I didn't do a lot of mind maps, but the ones that I did find quite useful. I think for things like history, so this is like an example of a mind map I did. I just put like a lot of colours. And I should also say, when you're doing mind maps as well, try and do them from memory. So obviously if you haven't covered it yet or haven't like fully understood it, what's good is just to read your notes, like passively absorb it, and then write down as much as you can in the mind map. And then once you've done it, go back to your textbook and then add any extra details that you need. I think another really good way that isn't quite like a mind map is this sort of thing, and this is what I did, and I think it's called like a blurt thing. I think I found out about it on YouTube. Basically, you pick a topic, you read your revision notes about it, or your school notes, or like a revision guide, and then you basically try and write down as much as you can remember, and you can like divide it into like little subtopics. So this is for history, so I've got like different dates and like many things, and you're doing this all from memory as much as you can in a black pen essentially. And then when you need to look something up because you're not sure, or like you can't quite remember it, what you can do is just highlight the different parts. So I think this was like basically day before my history exam, so this doesn't have a lot of highlighting on, but if you look at something like this, it's got a bit more highlighting on. Just highlight the key bits and bobs that you don't really understand or that you just keep forgetting. And I think it's really good because when you're looking back at this, you have highlighted the parts that you don't know, and that way you can really focus on them. And I think it's good revision technique because you're not just reading from your text, but you're only reading when you really need to. Other things I used were flashcards. I did all my flashcards on Quizlet, and the reason why I use Quizlet is because you can literally just search in Quizlet for a topic that you need, and more often than not you'll have like a set of flashcards that someone else has already made. because if you think about it, like everyone across the UK is doing their GCSEs. For each subject, you've probably got a set on Quizlet that's already been made. And the reason why I think it's so good is because when you use flashcards, what happens is, at least in my experience, I'd spend ages writing the flashcards, and then when I got to the actual exam, I wouldn't have had time to actually like practice using them because it took so long to write them. And then I felt like it was just a waste of time. But the reason I like Quizlet is because you can get these sets from other people, and you can also edit them as well. So if they've got bits you don't think are relevant, or they're missing parts that you want to know, you can literally add different flashcards to it and take parts away. So I thought that was a really good method of revising, and I think I use that a lot for economics, where you had to have like definitions, but I think like other subjects where you need a lot of definitions and just like memorizing key facts, I think it would be good for that as well. Another good thing is sort of links back to past papers, but if you look in like revision guides, they often have like questions as well, and a lot of people just like might skip over them because they're not like actual past paper questions. But I would recommend that you actually look at them and have a go at them, because they really test your knowledge, and they're also very similar to the questions that you might get in an exam. So for history, I know I keep going back to history, but I've just got all my, I did a lot of revision, particularly for history, because it was one of my hardest subjects. And so what I did is, I think this was in the half term between exams. So for mine, I literally just went through the revision guide and did every single question I could find. And it looks like so much writing, and honestly it was really exhausting, but I think it was really helpful doing those past paper questions in particular. So really make use of revision guides, not only just for the notes but also for the questions they have inside them. Another thing I should probably have said at the start is about revision notes. So what I'm talking about is like going through your textbook and just like bullet pointing the key information, or going through your like your school notes and just bullet pointing that and writing it all down as like revision notes. I personally didn't do any, and I know that it's quite like a popular technique to revise, but I personally don't think it's a very like efficient way of revising, because you're just essentially just writing down what you've already written, just like copying it down. I think that it's a waste of time because it takes such a long time to do that, and it doesn't really help you memorize any of it. What I think is better is to use like the revision guides, any revision guides, or your school notes as your revision notes, and then you can just refer to them instead of just writing it in a slightly more condensed version. I think that it's probably best just to avoid that and try and do more active things like flashcards, like mind maps, like that blurt thing I showed, and past papers. Out of all the methods that I've said, I think the past papers were the main ones I used, and I think it's really good toward when you're about like a month before your exams, or maybe about like a few weeks before your first exams. Once you've covered all the content, it's really good to get started on the past papers. And even if you haven't covered all your content yet, you can just do the past paper and just skip the questions that you don't really like, you think you've not covered yet. So I've talked about the methods I use to revise. I'm going to talk about the resources I use. So I've just put a list together of the things that I found were really useful. The first thing is this website called Seneca. I'll put the link somewhere on the screen. It's completely free, and it's this website where you can just select your GCSE course and like the subject as well. And then it gives you like fill in the blanks, and you just type in missing words and like small little activities like word matches and things like that. I think it was really good because it sort of covered the content that you need to know, but in like a really quick way. I would say that it's really good for revising, but just don't use that as your only method. I think if you really want the top grades, Seneca probably doesn't go into enough detail that you would need. But at the start, it was one of the main methods I used to revise, because when you're like covering stuff that you haven't done and you haven't looked at in like a year or so, it's a really good method to just sort of remember stuff you've done ages ago and just go over and just have like a general overview. Another thing that I really used a lot was YouTube. So there are some like really great channels out there that help with a lot of GCSE revision. So a lot of the videos I would watch would be like explanations for different things we've covered in school. And personally, I find like reading something in a textbook like really difficult. I don't know, I find it really boring just to read something in a textbook. So I prefer to sort of like have it told to me, and I think YouTube is really good because you can literally just search your topic and have someone explain it to you. And some of the channels I found really useful were Free Science Lessons, which was really good for science, and it covered literally everything I needed to know. For English literature, I found the YouTube channel Mr. Taylor quite good. Primrose Kitten as well has some really good summaries. I thought YouTube was really good for explanations. and a lot of the time I would just watch a YouTube video of a topic and then do some past paper questions about that topic. I mentioned this before, I think revision guides were really good as well. So CGP ones I thought were quite useful. Got like a bit more of a detailed explanation, because I found I really struggled with physics, and I think that it provided like a better explanation than the revision guides did. It also has these little practice questions as well after each little subtopic, and after a big topic you've got exam style questions, and it's got the answers in the back. So I thought it was really good, and but I think any of the CGP revision guides are really good, or different subject specific revision guides were also really good. You can get them secondhand from eBay for fairly cheap, because every year you get students selling them on. And I also thought that the practice booklets, this is a computer science one, but I think they have it for most subjects. I thought those were quite good, because they have loads of exam questions. I'll be honest, like, I think it's for computer science in particular. The questions weren't really like the ones that we got in the exam, but it really helped to like reinforce some of the concepts that you need to understand to answer the exam questions. So I thought it was quite good in that sense anyway. And finally, one of the really good resources I found is physicsandmathstutor.com, I think it is. I'll put the link on the screen. Essentially, this is like a question bank specifically for your science. So it's just got past paper questions, but it's divided by the topic. So if you want to revise, like, I don't know, electricity and physics, you can just go onto that website and then it'll give you past paper questions based on the topic. The problem with doing actual past papers like these, it doesn't like specifically look at one topic. So if you're like trying to revise for a topic test, actual past papers probably aren't that good, but the Physics and Maths Tutor website has like past paper questions, but it's just divided by your topic, and I think that was really useful. Yeah, so that's about it then. Then hopefully you've gained something from this video. If you want me to do any like subject specific videos, just put that in the comments and I'll try and do some videos about that. Or if you have any other videos you want me to do, I can try and do some on that. Yeah, subscribe so you don't miss out on that. And yeah, best of luck with any exams. I'm sure you'll do great.